Developed by 3AM Games, Magrunner Dark Pulse is a first-person action puzzle game in the same style as Portal and Quantum Conundrum. As a MagTech space exploration candidate, you're tasked with utilizing a special magnetic glove to manipulate your environment and complete a series of puzzle chambers, but as you get deeper into the facility, things start to go horribly wrong. Featuring complex puzzles, skillful platforming, and a story rooted in the Cthulhu mythos, is Magrunner an attracting experience? Let's take a look. Now, one of the first things that is very clear about Magrunner is the game's inspiration, and as far as the gameplay goes, it takes a lot of cues from the Portal series. Now, throughout the story, you're going to find yourself doing a lot of platforming and manipulating the rules of magnetism and momentum in order to pass each level, and the setup is also very similar to Portal. You play the part of a test subject who is sent to space to be part of a special colonization program, but in order to be accepted, you're required to pass a series of tests which take on the form of various puzzle chambers. Now, the biggest difference, though, is that Magrunner takes itself very seriously. You're not going to find any bits of humor at all in there, and it deals with a much heavier focus on the actual story. Now, the story starts off pretty slow, and unfortunately the characters are not memorable in any way whatsoever, but things really start to pick up when the game starts throwing in a lot of the supernatural elements. Now, H.P. Lovecraft fans are going to love this game because it actually centers around the awakening of Cthulhu, which was a very surprising and interesting twist considering that the game is set in space, and eventually it has a huge impact on the game itself. Now, of course, the big thing that really matters here is the gameplay, and for the most part, Magrunner is a very enjoyable puzzle game. So basically, you're equipped with this special glove that can magnetize objects. Now, you'll see that when I fire at an object using either the right or left mouse button, the charge around the object changes color. Now, different colors oppose each other, while two objects of the same color will attract and stick together, and this forms the basis for all of the various puzzle solving. Now, while the puzzles are generally well crafted, the game never really does a good job at introducing new game mechanics, and when it does, it seems very out of place. Now, for instance, in this puzzle right here, my goal is to break this energy sphere using one of the blocks that I have available. But the next few puzzles have entirely different goals, and this type of gameplay is really never utilized again. So the game has a tendency to introduce a new game mechanic too quickly and without much explanation, and it never really gives you a chance to master it before the difficulty ramps up, which actually happens pretty quickly. Now, the puzzles get very difficult about halfway through, but most of the difficulty just comes from not understanding the way certain objects behave. Luckily, though, the atmosphere alone is enough to keep anyone going, especially when the game takes a darker tone. Now, even though there is no real threat to your character, aside from falling in an endless pit or someplace that you're not supposed to go, the game does manage to create some very tense and even some pretty scary moments, and this is largely thanks to the excellent soundtrack and visual design, which changes quite frequently, so it never gets boring. Magrunner Dark Pulse isn't really all that different from other first-person puzzle games, right down to the use of opposing elements to solve problems. But if you are at all a fan of the Portal series, or just love a good puzzle game, then it's easy to recommend Magrunner. It has its fair share of problems, most notably the high difficulty spikes as you approach the halfway point, and the seemingly random appearance of new gameplay mechanics. But the atmosphere and feeling of achievement you get from solving a particularly challenging puzzle make up for the game's shortcomings. H.P. Lovecraft fans will be especially pleased at the surprising inclusion of Cthulhu elements, which somehow managed to work in the outer space setting. Magrunner is not a groundbreaking experience and rarely has a memorable puzzle throughout its short campaign, but it's fun while it lasts and is definitely worth a look. For more indie gaming news and reviews, make sure to check out our channel at pixabyte.tv, and I'll see you next time.